Grenadian Revolution 1979. Grenada is a small English-speaking island located in the southeastern part of the Caribbean. On March 13, 1979, Grenada's Prime Minister Eric Gary was removed from power in a coup organized by the New Drill movement led by Maurice Bishop. Bishop was installed as Prime Minister of the newly established People's Revolutionary Government. Why did Maurice Bishop overthrow Eric Gary's regime? Eric Gary was Grenada's major political and trade union official. In 1974, he led the island to independence. He was elected as the first prime minister. At first, he seemed to be a leader that cared about his people and his country, but as time progressed, Gary began to act eccentric or strange. He said that he believed in mysticism and unidentified flying objects. The people of Grenada were entirely embarrassed by his speeches on these two topics. As the Prime Minister, you'd imagine that some of these speeches were carried live on national and international television. Gary also became very brutal and corrupt. Similar to Batista in Cuba, he began to abuse his power. He squandered public funds. He, however, owned 30 estates while the majority of the people were poor and had very little land. There were 80 children in one class at the primary school. The roads were badly in need of repairs. Almost a half of the population were unemployed. The number of persons living below the poverty line increased on a daily basis. Still, Gary did nothing to help his people. There was one general hospital on the island. It lacked the necessary equipment and supplies. When the nurses went on strike to protest the conditions, they were tear gassed by Gary's orders. 22 of them were jailed as ringleaders and were transferred to neighboring islands. In fact, Gary is said to have used gangsters called the Mongoose Gang to execute anyone who opposed him. Again, this was similar to what Batista would have done in Cuba right before the outbreak of the revolution. The conditions were ripe for a revolution. On March 13, 1979, Maurice Bishop, leader of an opposition political party called the New Drill Movement, seized power in Grenada while the island's Prime Minister Eric Gary was off the island. What changes did this People's Revolutionary Party bring about? So, Bishop built a number of new schools to solve the problem of overcrowding. He introduced free education. Since more children could go to school, there was a decrease in the illiteracy rate. He built more health clinics, hospitals, and made other improvements in the healthcare sector. This took the strain off the one general hospital that previously served the entire island. In addition, healthcare was free. He established a housing scheme for the masses. These were sold at affordable prices to low-income earners. Women were allowed to play a more active role in politics and community affairs. More jobs were provided through the various cooperatives and agricultural programs that were introduced. The unemployment rate decreased from 49 to 14%. Grenada had only airstrip. Bishop began the construction of the international airport with the kind assistance and support from the Cuban engineers and skilled personnel. This, however, drew the attention from the then President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. He became suspicious of Cuba's involvement in the construction of the airport. He claimed that such a tiny island as Grenada did not need such a large airport, since nutmeg was its main export. Despite all these progressive and positive programs, Bishop's revolution was short-lived. It lasted a little more than 4 years. There were strong disagreements and division within Bishop's People's Revolutionary Government Party and among his government ministers. Bishop was a socialist, but some of his party members were communists. They felt that Bishop was not radical enough. When Bishop would not be persuaded by them to adopt communism, they took matters in their own hands. They broke away from Bishop's party and called themselves the Revolutionary Military Council. On October 13, 1983, led by the Deputy Prime Minister Bernard Howard, They launched a successful coup against Bishop. He was placed under house arrest. Fearing that other government members who were loyal to Bishop would release him and Bishop would in turn execute them, they decided to get rid of him. They dragged him from his house on October 19th. They lined Bishop and his loyal members against a wall in the capital city of St. George's and executed them. 6 days later, on October 25, 1983, the United States invaded Grenada. They called the move Urgent Fury. A fleet of some 23 warships carrying fighter jets and bombers, similar to those used in the Gulf War, landed off the Grenadian coast. In all, more than 7,000 American soldiers, Marines, troopers, and paratroopers were involved in an intense 3-day fight with the rebels. Why did the United States invade Grenada? They claimed that they were concerned about the safety of several hundreds of United States citizens who were students at the St. George's Medical University in Grenada. The American students, however, were in no real danger. Staff members from the American Embassy in nearby Barbados took the half-an-hour flight to Grenada to view the situation firsthand. They interviewed and questioned the American students they found there. It is said that the majority stated that they were fine, they felt quite safe, and they did not wish to go home. One might well argue the real reason for the invasion was America's concern about the spread of communism in her backyard. The United States, the champion of democracy, could not tolerate communism so close to her. To make matters worse, Bishop had rejected the United States domination of Grenada in favor of a close relationship with Cuba's Fidel Castro. The relationship between the two resulted in a lot of positives for Grenada. This was a serious blow to America's pride, and it was certainly not a good example for the other Caribbean countries at all. America wanted the entire Caribbean to be within her grasp and exclusively under her control. As is customary, we look at the effects of the revolution on Grenada and on the rest of the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica. Prime Minister Bishop invited a number of liberal-minded Caribbean people to work in Grenada. One Jamaican who became a member of his cabinet was Phyllis Coward. The events of October 13 and 19 spread through the Caribbean like wildfire. The media was in a frenzy. Radio, television, newspapers, and phones were abuzz with the news. Lecturers at the 3 university campuses entertained discussion from concerned students. Caribbean leaders from the OECS, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, met in Barbados. The meeting was presided over by Prime Minister Eugenia Charles of Dominica. They took the decision to join the United States Armed Forces that would invade Grenada. Consequently, some 300 soldiers from Jamaica, Antigua, Barbados, Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent went to Grenada to assist the United States in stopping the bloodbath of its politicians by the Revolutionary Military Council. The Grenada Revolution became part of the CXC History syllabus in 2002 and is now part of the Grade 9 History syllabus.